Awesome. We're live. Welcome, attendees.
Hello, everybody.
No questions at this time. Awesome. Chat, that's what I'm looking for. There it is. Hello, everyone, and welcome. Don't forget to change your chat defaults to panelists. Make sure you change it to everybody so we can chat with each other throughout the presentation today.
And for fun, we thought, since our theme is Netflixing your association, put your favorite Netflix show in the chat. We'd love to hear it.
So I've been watching a couple shows on Netflix recently, guilty pleasure shows, of course. One's called The Floor is Lava. You have to work your way across a room full of obstacles and the floor is lava and you can't fall in it. Pretty good. And then my second new show is Space Force. Super funny. Great show if you're looking for a good comedy. Space Force. Ozark, love it. I also watched Cocaine Cowboys. What a great show that was.
I haven't seen that yet.
Everybody loves Space Force. It's hilarious. If you have a chance, it's a good laugh. The Queen's Gambit. I hear a lot of people are playing chess because of that.
It's good.
You got to watch The Crown. Yep.
Bunch of Crown enthusiasts.
All right. If I click the button right, I think I'm sharing my screen now.
You are.
Awesome. Get my chat over here and my notes. This is like my webinar command center we have to build for events like this.
So give it another 30 seconds and we'll get started.
Yeah, I still see the number going up and up. As soon as it starts a plateau, I typically like to get started. We'll give it another minute here. Greetings, hello from PA. Rich, you're a little bit late to the call. What is your favorite new Netflix show? Same thing for you, James. You got to tell us your favorite guilty pleasure Netflix show you've been watching, because we're talking all about Netflix and your association today. Tell us what it is. And it looks like we've got critical mass for attendees. So let's go ahead and jump in and get started.
All right.
Dan, you want to introduce yourself to the group today?
Thanks, everybody, for coming. Dan Stevens, president of Workabee TV. A lot of people know us through our trademark service association TV. And we're a video platform and services company that really helps associations inform, educate, and inspire their members. I've also published a book called Moving Your Association from Analog to Digital. I look forward to spending time with you today.
Awesome. And good afternoon, everyone. If you don't know me by now, my name is Greg. I am the Vice President of Sales here at Association Analytics. I co-host our bi-weekly how-to series that we've been doing. And I'm really excited to present today's session with Dan all about how to Netflix your association. So what are we talking about today? Today, we are going to talk about sort of the lessons that we learned from Netflix and how you can start to leverage them for your association. We're going to be talking about measuring that gap between what Netflix does and what you do, how you can embrace digital transformation and start closing that gap, and how we have a plan put together that as quick as 90 days, you can be leveraging digital media just like Netflix does, and you can be benefiting from the data that's generating for you. So then the question is, why are we even talking about Netflix, right? Let's think about Netflix from a couple standpoints. One is Netflix went from that service we all remember where we had those paper DVDs and CDs that they would mail to our house to one of the most popular streaming services out there. And the question is, how did they do that? How did they transform from old school technology to new school technology? How did they embrace that digital transformation? And the answer is they use data. If you look at Netflix's website, they have a whole section all about research and analytics where they talk about how analytics was the key to their success. And I think analytics is going to be the key to your success, leveraging digital to be smarter and faster at what you're doing. Again, why do associations and Netflix look and feel similar to me? I think they have similar business models, right? Netflix has a membership model. You join as a member, you renew as a member. They distribute content that's created out there by thought leaders, kind of like the events I go to all the time where thought leaders come and speak. They also create their own content, right? That LMS I go to take courses. Retention is key. It's not just getting an audience, it's understanding and retaining that audience. And hopefully these things are starting to sound familiar to you. These things sound similar to how associations work. And even if we look at retention, and this blew Dan and I away when we wrote these numbers down, if we look at the popular streaming services like Hulu and Prime, 64%, 75% retention rate. If we look at the average association, here we've got 80% is the average association retention rate. That's from our friends over at Marketing General. Netflix is at 93% retention rate. 93% retention rate. Can you imagine if you could boost your association retention up to 93%, what that would do for you? Now, how did Netflix get there? And the answer seems obvious. It's content. So if Netflix brings on a show, they renew 93% of their content every year, whereas traditional cable TV only renews about 35% of their content every year. Now, why is this? And I think the answer is data and analytics, right? Netflix knows what you're watching. They know who you are. They know what program you start. They know how long you watch it, and they know what you go on to watch next. Cable has no idea. They don't know if I'm watching that new show or not. They don't know how long I'm watching it. They don't know if I turn it off 5 seconds in. They don't have the ability to collect data. This is the old school model of operating, right? We just put stuff out there and hope people like it. In Netflix's world, not only are they observing what we watch, but they're creating content relevant for us. According to Netflix, 75% of viewer activity is based off of personalization and recommendation. Dan and I were chatting about this earlier. Netflix has a feature where you can just say, show me something that's interesting. Just pick a program and show it to me. And it's always episodical. It's always something that has multiple episodes that hooks you and brings you back in to watch. They're personalizing it. They're creating a hook that keeps you in there for a while. This is not by accident. This is all by design. So not another Adam Sandler movie. If you had to ask the average movie producer out there, do we need more Adam Sandler movies? They'd be like, no, we're good. We got enough of those. We remember the 90s. But Netflix greenlit a ton of new Adam Sandler movies. Why? Well, they use data to do this. They know that people like Greg like Adam Sandler movies. They know there's a gap in the marketplace, and they're creating content to fill that gap. It's not by accident that I watched that latest Adam Sandler movie. He was a police officer. They went on this boat cruise. Somebody got murdered. It was an okay movie, but I watched it, right? They captured my attention. It's not by accident they did that. They use data to do that. So how does this all apply to you? Well, what you need to know is, what are your members thinking? What are your members interested in? What do they want? How are you tracking and analyzing the behavior of your members? How do we go from a world where we just see our members to where we can start to see through the matrix, right? We can understand what our members are thinking. We can understand what they want, and then we can personalize that experience. We can provide them content that's relevant, and we can go create net new content that will be relevant for them in the future. So how do you do this? Well, your data is telling you a story. And the question is, are you listening? Are you taking all of that rich data that your platforms are generating, and are you benefiting from it? Or is that data just getting lost? And Dan's going to talk about some of the ways we lose our data. One is not capturing it, right? It's out there on some public place like YouTube. I don't know what's happening on YouTube or if my members watch it or not. We're doing it at live sessions, and we're not capturing who comes in or watches them. We're not leveraging all of this rich data we're collecting. We're not connecting the dots. So this is a really good example of what's called a market basket analysis. Imagine in the physical world, you work at a shopping center and somebody comes up and checks out with their groceries, and you see all these things in their basket. Can you make logical connections between those? The answer is yeah. I can see that, milk, eggs, and yogurt go together. I can see that the Tostitos, the chips, and the margarita mix go together. And if I were a savvy person who worked at that supermarket and I noticed you didn't have your margarita mix, but you did have your chips and salsa, I might say, hey, you should pick up that margarita mix and put it in your basket as well. You're not going to have a great party without it. But the problem is, in our association world, our products and services don't always make sense and connect as simple as chips and salsa do. So we have to start relying on these digital footprints our members are leaving in the sand to understand that this course leads to that purchase, that this event leads to that book, that book leads to that certification, and there's a natural connection between those things. And all of this is happening in the data inside your ecosystem. So Dan, talk to me a little bit on how we can start understanding this gap and how we can start closing this. Because I'm sold on collecting the data. How do I do the rest of this stuff?
Thanks very much, Greg. Measuring the gap starts off with having an endpoint and working backwards. And that's why we're talking about Netflix today, because they're doing it so well. And it's easy for us to understand so that we can say, how now do we look at our own website, how we service our members today. And if we go to the next slide, you'll see that for the most of us, we've got our website articles, maybe a community platform, our events, the old physical events, and maybe an LMS, if it's appropriate, sitting on top of our association management system. And what started to happen before COVID, and it just got accelerated through COVID, is a lot of our engagement has turned digital very fast. So as you mentioned, Greg, those videos on YouTube knows that member and their experience, but the association doesn't. That podcast on a separate platform, and my webinars available by date somewhere else, and my social media. And then we all started renting virtual events platforms that were, I'm only going to use it for 30 days, so it's not worth the energy to integrate it to my e-commerce and my single sign-on and my web brand, and of course my, intelligence systems. And so all of a sudden now, those circles at the bottom are representing a significant amount of engagement. And so the opportunity is, how do I bring that, the way Netflix did, into my website? What if my website was like Netflix? I didn't have to know it was a webinar. I didn't have to know it was a podcast. I didn't have to know it was content that came from a virtual events with or without continued ed credit. I could just come, search, filter, find, and even better, be recommended those systems. And so what Association TV does, and why we've got those green boxes at the top, is that we actually can be one experience for all of that content. And then below that, integrated to the association management system is association analytics that can collect all of that data from a physical event, from someone signing up to be a board member or a committee member, to all the way into, I watched this video on this topic. I watched that Adam Sandler podcast. I watched that Adam Sandler, course. I went to an Adam Sandler webinar. Guess what? I like Adam Sandler. And through that, feed that data down into the organization to help with better programming, the way it's obviously worked with Netflix, to do campaigns and start segmenting my audience and saying there's a subset of my audience who would come to this one-day session that we've never put on that might generate some great engagement and some great non-dues revenue, as well as move to eventually real-time referral, just like Netflix, where because you watched this or because you did that, we recommend this. This is the future. And along the way, it doesn't take long, surprisingly, for you to start to see what people are doing, where they're voting with their time. Where people put their time is where they typically put their money. And so this starts to give you that view into the behavior of your members, the way Netflix is seeing it today, and has really jumped on it and elevated it.
Dan, I got a problem with this, because when we bought all those systems, it was different departments who made the decision to bring those on. They were at different times. Some of them were integrated, some of them weren't. I kind of live in a world that looks like this. What do I do?
Well, and this is exactly what we see all the time. Every department is motivated and has to communicate, to educate, and inspire members. And so this is an example of that member. And what tends to happen, though, is, we start all using different tools. Someone's using YouTube, and someone else, another department is using Vimeo, and the podcast platform is somewhere else. And somebody's using, Zoom for webinars, and someone else is using Teams. And all of a sudden, the poor member is going, I'm being bounced around like a ping pong ball. I don't really care about departments. I care about experience. And so the goal is to provide an environment where they just think, we don't go to different Facebooks when it's a live event or on demand. We don't go to a different Facebook, whether it's video, audio, or a picture. We go to one place, your brand. So imagine this being where the member can come and all of that information being fed by each individual department, appropriated with the right taxonomy by each individual department. But the member goes, I can filter and find without knowing the medium. I just want to care about finding by topic or by course or by whatever I'm searching on. And it will tell me if it's a podcast. It will tell me if it's a video. It will tell me if it's a course. This is the first step at not only making it easier for members to engage, which increases engagement, but then by measuring that engagement, guess what happens? We get better at all those things, right? Because our programming gets better. We find out, one of our clients, they went from 4-hour courses to 1-hour courses. Now they're going, I think we have to go to 15-minute and 5-minute courses based on the data. And so this helps us in that continual improvement mode, refine the way we engage members.
So what are the different audiences we're talking about here? I think if we look at the first person, the member, right? This makes so much sense for our members. Your member doesn't understand your tech ecosystem. They don't understand the vendors you're using and the platforms and how they single sign on or don't with each other. They just want to go get their content. How do you remove the barriers to entry from your members in finding the content they want and engaging in consuming that content, right? If we have it all in centralized places that are interconnected, if it's easy for the member to access that, they're going to have an improved experience. Their engagement's going to improve, and you are going to start benefiting from those results. So if we want to better serve the members, we need to stop sending them all these places to get access to the data. We need to bring that into our ecosystem. We've talked about this in the past. Social media is an outpost. It is outside of your kingdom. This is where you post your content to hook people and bring them into your kingdom, but you don't give away the farm. You say, hey, there's this awesome content over there. Come on in to get it, right? That's my LinkedIn post. Check out this great video we have. Click here to access it, and it pulls them into your ecosystem. This is where we can keep them and engage them.
Yeah, I like to think of it as social media and YouTube are micro marketing opportunities for awareness to pull people to your brand. Micro learning is opportunities to engage both members and non-members. And then full learning should be a member-only benefit. And that kind of creates that sales funnel from social media to awareness and interest to I now need that course. I now need that membership. I now need that association. And then closing the gap, is that opportunity to, look at the data. And so for the association, if I've improved the engagement, as Greg was just talking about, and my engagement has gone up, I'm learning so much about the needs of not just each individual, but these distinct market segments within my overall audience. And so now I can take information that came through one experience, i.e. signing up for a physical event or buying a course, and also correlate it with that digital experience of watching a video or listening to a podcast, and really start getting a clear picture on where our programming is strong, where it needs improvement, where we don't have enough or too much, and start refining the model and really getting down. And when, and then in real time, basically seeing the results. How did that decision work? Did I have an increase in engagement? Typically, when you have an increase in engagement, it will mean better recruitment, better retention, and along the way, better revenue from a number of sources. Number one, all of that activity on your website, more non-dues revenue, sponsorship, advertising, more sales of courses, more, of course, retention and recruitment drive more member dues. And it just, everything works together. Engagement is the impact that will drive those results.
Imagine the value of your association is data.
Yeah, I'll just say one last.
I'm sorry.
Sorry, Greg. I just want to say one last thing. The other side benefit of this is that we're all dealing with, while we need to learn more about each member, we're all dealing with the American Disabilities Act, GDPR, security, and all of the impact of the internet. And so the side benefit of consolidating your webinars and your videos and your virtual and hybrid events and everything into one platform is one single sign-on, one integration to a tool like Association Analytics in your AMS. It just simplifies that technical side while you're also simplifying the user experience. And that's becoming a bigger and bigger thing every day. Sorry to interrupt.
Oh, no, that's a perfect point. I think your IT team would love you if you said we're going to minimize the amount of systems we have and make your integration in single sign-on world easier. But I think as far as the association goes, the business users, the reward is data. If you think about that slide earlier where we talked about Netflix versus cable, are you operating in a world of Netflix where you have access to the data and you're leveraging it, or are you operating in the dark and you're old network cable and maybe people watch that show and maybe they don't? I don't really know. I have no idea who engages in that programming or how successful it is. I have no idea if people who engage in that quote member benefit actually renew at a higher rate or not. I think they might, but I actually can't prove it. I have no idea. I can't connect those dots. You're going to be network cable, right? You're going to be going out of business. People are going to stop watching. I don't even have cable anymore. I've got Netflix, right? I don't want that to happen to our associations. Start leveraging the data now because you have it and it's a huge asset. Now think about the cost of doing this, right? This is going to cost time, money, and effort, but think about the cost of not doing this. Not just the cost of not doing it today, but the cost of not doing this long-term for your organization. If the measurement of the outcome is tangible, right? We can track what's happening with engagement, with data. We can see how our campaigns are happening. We can see the value of it. We can measure that value in the 3 Rs. If we can get a 13% higher retention rate, which I think we can do better than Netflix, we've got a captive audience, we've got content that's relevant, we've got experts to produce it. I think we can do better than 93% retention rate. But what if you could go from your current retention rate to 93? Think about what that would do for you, not just today, but long term. One thing when you're thinking about this is, and we're going to talk about digital transformation here, the amount of data your association has isn't getting smaller. You're not going to have less data in the future. The complexity of that data isn't getting simpler. Now we have unstructured data, we have comments, we have chat logs, we have view times. We have to put in place a strategy not only to handle that data now, but to sustain us for the next generation. How do we make our organization sustainable is creating a culture of data and analytics now. So in 5 to 10 years down the road, we're not thinking about this for the first time. We've got a platform in place. We've got an ecosystem in place that's going to be successful. And that's the word you've been hearing for years, I guess 2 words, digital transformation. So what is digital transformation? Why do I need to understand this? Walk me through this. I don't understand. I hear it all the time.
Well, and imagine for an association, you're trying to get your board, your leadership team, your management team on side and your members with digital transformation. And for some people you hear, oh, it's a 5-year, long-term plan. And it's like, it's just very difficult. If you go across all of your departments and you say, describe digital transformation for us and our members, you'll get 5 different answers. And so the reason we like to talk about Netflix today, if we just go to the next slide, is it gives you, that old begin with the end in mind, that Stephen Covey favorite line, begin with the end in mind. Netflix makes it easy for your board, your leadership team, your management team, for everybody to go, I understand that end goal. So we want to be as simple, as engaging, and as measurable as Netflix. Yes, that's the end goal. And socializing this model makes it easy for people to go, you know what, what's the true gap now between where we are so that we can, we don't have to throw away. How do we build from where we are to fill that gap? And what we'll share in the next few slides is just how to go about kind of measuring that. But again, and we've kind of talked about this already, think of it from how do I integrate the member experiences into wherever possible, a single knowledge center? How do I bring all of that interaction from a community platform, from video, podcasts, articles, learning, and so forth into one experience? Right? Obviously, easier for members to find it, easier for them to consume it, and easier for them to act on it. And act is where you make all your money. Register, join, renew, download, buy. And then take those insightful analytics so that we can now start going, this programming is awesome. This one's not so awesome. How do we improve and fine tune the wheel? And how do we then personalize the experience? Because as we add more content, and the world is very noisy, right? And that's why that play something on Netflix just says, hey, I know you're going to spend 30 minutes looking around for something. You hit play something, the algorithm will recommend something you will like. How do we do that for our members so that they come to that website and in 5 seconds, they're already engaging with something that's appropriate for them? And then open the door for this two-way. Well, because you did this, now you should watch that. And really feel like my association truly cares about my personal development.
I want to say something real quick about, because you took this course, attended this, we send this next thing to you. Oftentimes when I talk to people about the idea of a recommendation engine, they sort of imagine there's a million pieces of content that connect to a million outcomes, and we have to have this really massive, complex web. And it can be a lot simpler than that. You don't have as much content that needs to be connected as you think. It can be 5 or 6 actions lead to 10 or 12 outcomes. It doesn't have to be a massive web of hundreds of thousands of things. Start making those connections in your data and then start sharing them with your members and watch the engagement grow, right? Pick one of your most popular pieces of content and say, hey, because you looked at this, take a look at this. A lot of people like that, right? The accuracy of that algorithm and how much it's recommended to you doesn't need to be shown to that end user. If you say people like the content you've been looking at, also look at this, you immediately get buy-in for it. And when you get better at it, now you can start to diversify what you're recommending. But the goal is just to get started and recommend that, and then track to see how successful it is, watch where your wins are, and then focus on those things.
And know when to look at it in groups and when to look at it individually. So the first thing we recommend you look at is start looking at those departmental layers. So from a member experience perspective, not from a departmental perspective. So virtual and hybrid events, when we first went to a rented platform, we were all in urgent times with COVID, but now we're going to be doing them more often. Why not own it? Why not have it on your website? Why not integrate it? So it's just another service like doing a webinar. And so now all of that data, all of that content from a physical or a hybrid event to a virtual event, we now get the learning from, and it has now a shelf life of much longer time frame, a year, instead of it's out there for 30 days. Good luck finding it after the event. Combining your video, audio, articles, and webinars and your community interaction, the ability to say, I watched this and I liked it, or I watched this and I have a question, into one environment. Can you do that, right? Looking at your continued ed or your accreditation if you're so inclined. And is it being recommended in those videos, audios, and articles? If I'm watching a 2-minute video on something where I could take a course on it, do I know? As a member, it's difficult. Go pretend to be a member on your website and try and find it, especially if you're serving it on YouTube. It's impossible. And so it doesn't happen. So it's a lost sale opportunity. It's a lost engagement opportunity. It's a lost revenue opportunity. How do we then start to use those recommendations, whether those are notifications or services for me, or even giving the ability to say, you know what, you can have your own channel on our website called My Channel, and I can park the things in my own channel, which will accelerate my algorithm on what I really love. And allow me a place to come back, because I can't, sometimes I find it, but I look at the time and go, it's a 30-minute podcast. I only have 5 minutes. So I want to park it for later, because if I come back, I may not find it. And then billings, renewals, volunteering, and your governance. What percentage of this data is housed here? And can I make decisions on it? And what we're seeing, and not to disparage AMSs, but they're very good at the relational database and transactional side. Not so great at the non-transactional side, looking at like all of this other digital engagement, like videos and courses, and how much time did I actually spend on that course to know that my 4 hours is too long and my 1 hour might even be too long. And so bringing all of those worlds together into one data environment, which is where association analytics shines, is allowing us to pull all of these things from all of these places into one data lake where I can truly learn. So and start by kind of scoring yourself in each of these categories. That's step one. And again, because of Netflix, you've got now the gap to go, what would I need to change?
Dan, you said something that really hit me, is look at it from the lens of a member. And I'll challenge you all, go to your website and join as a fake member. Make up a name and start playing with your digital ecosystem. Figure out where you can go. As a new member who has no idea what you provide or don't, bounce around your website. Try and find all the resources and tools that your association provides, but only do the things that are easy. Only find the things that are obvious, and then wait a couple days and tell the rest of the staff the fake name you've created and ask them to give data back on what you did. Say, hey, I made this fake name up. Tell me all about this person, what they're interested in, what they accessed or not, and see what answers you get back. This is a fantastic exercise that's going to give you insights into what the experience looks like from a member standpoint and how that experience is translated into data that you're able to collect or not able to collect.
Right. The next step, once you've done that analysis, is to look at your platforms existing and what you need in the future, and look at them from these three kind of perspectives. Number one, for member experience, right? That easy to find, easy to consume, easy to act, what you were just talking about, Greg. Two, integration, security, and standards conformance is now becoming such a big deal. And so the less platforms I have, the less integrations I need to manage. And I think of integrations like the difference between a road and a bridge. Roads are expensive, bridges are way more expensive. So you want to minimize the number of roads and bridges so that you are improving member experience by default. They don't have to learn as many tools. And two, you're protecting your data, you're learning better from your data, and you're having to manage less relationships with vendors. And then making sure that the right data is being collected from a business intelligence standpoint, and then can be acted on. It's one thing to have a report. Can this data actually be acted on? Because if you don't do anything with the data, well, then nothing will happen. So whether that starts out with campaigns through a Marketo or a HubSpot or a Salesforce or whatever you're using for marketing, but instead of blasting all of your members, you're targeting those people who would be most interested in that offering to eventually that real-time recommendation. So now we've scored, now we've looked at it through this lens. And what we'd like to share with you a little bit is it doesn't have to take a year or 3 years or 5 years to do digital transformation. There are tools on the market available today to get you there in as early as 90 days. And then it never ends, right? It's always continual improvement, fine tuning. But to get the basics in place does not take a long time. So here, what we do at Association TV is we are kind of like that Facebook or kind of like that Netflix, where we integrate our platform to your website and we integrate it to your AMS and your single sign-on and tools like Association Analytics. And now all of that digital content is in one place, one member experience. I can search and find everything that matches: video, audio, articles, micro-learning, full learning, live or on demand. I can run virtual conferences or hybrid conferences all in one place. And because of that, less integrations to manage, lowering costs, lowering risk, but more importantly, with that increased engagement, pushing that data into the next slide, which is Association Analytics, where we can now truly learn on what topics are really resonating. We have one association we work with, and it's funny how it happens, but We produce a video once a week for them, and there's a lot of content on the site. But we know that there's just one topic that if 25% or more of the content is just not on that one topic, engagement falls off. It's just that important a topic to their membership. And so we have to design our content calendar to make sure that the frequency and the gap between rich content on these topics is not too long. And that's what data will tell us, what the members really love.
And that's where we come into play. So association analytics, if you can't figure it out by the name, is all about helping you collect your data, centralize that data, and make use of that data. Let the data tell a story. So we have pre-built integrations with things like your AMS, things like your community, platforms like Association TV, where the members are engaging with each other, and we can pull all of that data into a data lake. We can then transform that data into information, which is designed for the humans to start using. And then the humans can use that information to generate knowledge, to make decisions, to connect the dots, to build the marketing campaigns, to update the website, to create the relevant content, right? We have organizations now who are looking at what their members are engaging with, using that to create tag clouds around content and distributing that to the team and saying, this is what our members care about. Did you know that people are still talking about GDPR? Did you know that executives at our member organizations care about diversity and inclusion? Maybe we should have some topics on that at our annual conference. They're not guessing what members are wanting. They're letting the data speak for them, and they're following the direction the data is going, right? So we're making better, smarter decisions. That's a feedback mechanism that goes into our data system. We then produce content, and we can see what's working and not, and we can use that to shift our strategy and produce better content down the road. So the vision looks a little bit more like this. It's all integrated, it's all connected. We're still using best-in-breed solutions where necessary, but we're not abandoning our data out there on social media platforms. Mark Zuckerberg doesn't need any more of your money. YouTube's got enough revenue. They don't need your views. More importantly, what do you think happens at the end of that YouTube video? Oh, go watch this other thing. You've gone down a rabbit hole in the wrong direction. I want that next thing to be, oh, if you like this video, come to our conference. Sign up for our webinars. Sign up for that course we're offering where we go deeper into this. That can only happen in your ecosystem, in your platforms. Call up YouTube and ask them which one of your members watch which videos. Not going to happen, right? Go to LinkedIn and say, which one of our members are using the social media engagement we have on YouTube, on LinkedIn? They're not going to tell you. That's not their business. Their business is generating data for themselves, collecting and using that data. What I want you to start doing is leveraging your own data. So we've talked about this a couple times. Let's talk about the investment. We've talked about this investment as far as time, money, and effort. I think this makes a lot of sense when I look back at this. Netflix did this contest. There's a lot of information on this. Go read more about this. This is really exciting. They offered $1 million prize to the team that could create the best algorithm that would help them predict what you are likely to watch next. And you think to yourself, $1 million prize, that's a big reward out there. But how many billions and billions of dollars is Netflix generating in revenue now using that algorithm to predict what's likely to happen? So if we had to say, maybe go from an 80% retention rate up to a 90% retention rate, what would that do for your organization? Write this down on paper, calculate this. So we took a really simple organization, 2,000 members, $2 million in annual revenue. If they could increase their retention rate and be more like Netflix, it's over $260,000 a year, just 1 year. That compounds over time. This increases non-dues revenue. We took the easiest case scenario. What would that mean for your organization if you were to increase your retention rate up that high? And I think we can beat Netflix. I think we have a captive audience. We can do better than them.
We have physical events, we have committees, we have two-way communication, we have e-newsletters, we have, so in theory, we should be better. But it just demonstrates how if you focus on digital engagement, which through COVID has become the #1 way we engage with members, it is really dramatic when you can personalize, when you can learn from that behavior, and when you can simplify the experience so people can find, consume, and act. And all of a sudden, not only do you get all the benefits, but the reverse is true if you do nothing. If you do nothing, through COVID, our competitors are who you mentioned, YouTube. LinkedIn has training courses, right? Like social media is both a friend and a foe. And so what they've also done, just like Netflix has done, is they've said, this is what simplicity looks like. Amazon, one click to buy. Everybody's now getting used to, I should be able to find it, consume it, and act on it really quickly. And if we as an association don't follow through, we have friction. And when you add friction to a website, people abandon and they don't come back. And so you have a new set of competitors thanks to COVID, and it is all of these digital ecosystems called social media. And so the good news is it's not that expensive, it's not that difficult, and it doesn't have to be that time consuming to actually elevate, because your content is more homogeneous. Your targeting is more homogeneous than Facebook and YouTube and LinkedIn. And so you actually can leapfrog them and put yourself in a great position for continued growth.
Dan, it's not that I want to embrace digital transformation. It's not that I'm doing nothing. I've just got this long list of things I need to do before I embrace all this stuff. I've got to clean up my data. I've got to upgrade my AMS to a new system. I've got to hire that key person. That's going to take me 2 to 3 years to get through. Before I even get to this, how am I supposed to do this in 90 days?
Well, and you know, digital transformation never ends. So it starts, but it never ends. You will continually be fine-tuning and improving because you'll have data. And so what we can do together in 90 days is we can put down that 80-20 rule. We can put down the infrastructure so that members can find all of that content in one place, one experience, your brand. We can add layers of monetization so that it's self-funding with sponsorship, advertising, pay-per-view, subscription. We can start collecting the data regardless of the AMS and regardless of what version of that AMS in association analytics, and start generating reports and segmentation and action in 90 days. And then as you update, or if you still need to update that AMS, or it doesn't have to take forever, it can be a quick jump because, you know, our companies like us, we get the experience of working with lots of organizations, and we've already built the tools. So people can buy way faster than they can build, and they can move into it with best practices very, very quickly. Now, it doesn't stop there. Now you've got the foundation in place. Now you've got the data coming. How do I use that data? How do I make decisions on that data? Because it's the decisions I make which will improve the experience, which will improve the analytics, which will improve the retention and the revenue. And so that's where we and you can work together to go, aha, look what we've just learned. What are the things that we can do with content or features or whatever to improve and fine tune and test that model for the next quarter and the next quarter? And the associations that kind of start looking at this as going, what's my quarterly objective for improvement, are the ones that are truly going to remain relevant and truly be here to serve, as there's going to be a very noisy internet and everyone's fighting for market share, including the Netflixes and the Facebooks fighting for market share. And so we've got to do our job to fight before their analytics get so good at recommending content that's free from YouTube or wherever that we are no longer relevant. So it's a time is of the essence.
I couldn't agree more with you about time being of the essence. Do I have the right slide there? There we go.
Yeah.
Your favorite question was dropped in the Q&A here. Will you send a copy of the deck, Dan? Can I get a copy of this deck from you?
Absolutely. Just here's our email addresses. Just send us an email and we will make sure you get a copy of the deck. If there's questions along with that, please just add a question if you have something specific you want. We'll also make sure we get that information to you as well. Information is power here. So please ask away. And if there's questions in the chat, we certainly have time, if you do, to hang around for more.
I was so excited about the content. I forgot to better engage our participants. I apologize for that. We didn't have a whole lot of questions for the chat today. So let us know what your thoughts are. Did you like what we were saying? Are you on the route we were talking about? Do you understand the value of consolidating all your data? Do you have questions about it? I'd love to hear in the chat if anybody has pretended to be a member and logged in and poked around and how that worked for you. And if you haven't, let us know more about that.
Yeah.
Understand, but not sure how to implement. All right, so we've got some evangelists here. They're drinking the Kool-Aid. How do we get started? What do I need to do to actually start checking off boxes here? What's my list tomorrow?
Well, and when you get, please leave your email if you want to copy the slides. But if you follow those steps in the slides, number one, use the Netflix mindset to get everybody internally on the same page. This is not a single department objective. This is an organizational objective. So use that to go, okay, we all use Netflix. We all understand that experience. Imagine what it would be like if we could do that. Okay, so now you start to bring this fuzzy name of digital transformation into something that's real and measurable. Now you can back off from that to go, where are we? You know, that AMS decision. And what if we had a tool like association analytics? And what if we could consolidate all of our content? And what kind of revenue would we need on that content so that we could actually move closer to refreshing our website at 93% a year, or even 35% a year, like cable TV? Because if you looked at most associations, I bet you it's down in the 10s to 15. And so how do we fund that model at the same time? These are the questions so that you can put a business plan together alongside of a technology plan. And so that you're pre-thinking what the objectives and milestones of success look like. And so you can celebrate them as you get them. And that's what I think, that's what Greg's team and my team do every day, is help organizations clarify that vision, measure that gap, and help look to go, where can we help you fill that gap? And because this is our full-time jobs, we can just do it quickly.
I agree with that. And if you watch our how-to series, we always tell you, like, here's the goal, here's how you do this with all these fancy platforms, but we also give you some concrete ways to do that tomorrow. So say I haven't invested in these platforms, go to your YouTube channel, figure out what your most popular video is and why. Go to your Google Analytics, look at your search terms. What are people on your website looking for the most? Go to your community, look at the most talked about topics over the last 4 or 5 months, and start figuring out who those people are that are talking about it and start using that data. The things we talked about today are way easier and more valuable when you have platforms that insist you to do it. But just go start. The journey of 1,000 miles starts with the first step. Block off 10 minutes on your calendar tomorrow to start looking at these platforms and the analytics and reports they give and start using the basics and realize that really quickly you're going to run into the end of YouTube's analytics. It's okay, but it's not as good as you can get. Real quickly, Google Analytics wasn't capturing all the data you want. It wasn't set up in the right way. The reports in your community aren't connected to your AMS, but you're going to get a foothold and you're going to get a glimpse in what that data looks like. And that's going to create a hunger and a passion to want more. So I'd say book 10 to 15 minutes tomorrow in your calendar, log into some of these disconnected platforms you have, and start looking at the reports. And then realize you don't have access to them and you have to email 10 people to even get access to those things. And the data is not connected. And you say, oh, this would be easier if it was faster. But you're going to run into some walls pretty quick. But what I hope you come to the realization is overcoming those challenges is worth it. It's worth investing in the tools and solutions to get more of that data, because the little bit I could get now was worth the taste, and I want the whole thing.
Well, and you know, we all have the luxury of seeing it work. Netflix made it work. Facebook made it work. LinkedIn made it work. Twitter made it work. If we can all grow as fast as they did, just imagine. If we could grow at a quarter of what they're growing, we would be incredible. But we kind of looked at them back in the old days before COVID, when most of our engagement was face-to-face or through our magazine or through kind of non-digital engagement. We kind of looked at them as, well, that's not us. Well, guess what? After COVID, that is us. We are digital first, mobile first, and with the largest opportunity for membership growth ever to hit, bigger than the boomers, which are the millennials that are now coming of age. What an opportunity. But at the same time, there's going to be a shortage of workers for about an 8-year run. How do we do that? We use technology. We use technology to educate and inform. We use technology to learn. We use technology to better service that growth opportunity without increasing necessarily even the size of our staff. So technology is going to be the short-term savior for us to be as good or better. We think you can be better than a Netflix for your members, but certainly be equal. And that's where we all need to get, because if we don't, we will cease to be relevant in however many years. And so that's the opportunity. Associations are too important to the careers and the professions and the organizations that they serve for us to be not relevant. So let's make sure we do the right things to actually improve relevance.
We've got 2 great questions in the chat here. One of them is pretty easy. Don wants to know, will you send me the recording? The answer is yes, we will send you the recording. Shoot Dan an email. His email should be on the screen right now, and he will send you a copy of the deck and the recording. Easy enough. Answered. Check.
We will practice what we preach. We will be available in micro learning. We'll be available in video. We will be available in audio, and you'll be able to download the slides. So we want to practice what we preach. When you start with video, it's easy to go multimedia, and it's easy to organize a social media asset to pull to your website, a micro learning to engage, and a full learning for only those who are members or who joined our webinar today. So we're going to practice what we preach. If you send us your email, we will make sure that we get that to you.
All right, here's another question, and I feel like we could do a whole session on this. For the people who hung out, you're going to get some gold here. How do I get past the attitude? If it's on the internet, it should be free. Now, let me take a stab at this, and Dan, talk to me, because I think Association TV helps out a lot here. If it's on the internet, it almost should be free. And I am of the opinion that we should remove as many barriers to entry to our content as possible, with some small caveats. It's free for you to consume. However, I need to know who you are. I need some data back in return. What I'd love to know, your name and email address. That's all I'm looking for, and you can access my content. In the old school world, the person who consumed the content paid for the content, right? I want to watch this movie. I go to the movies. I pay to watch that movie. That goes to the producers. They made the movie. It's a one-to-one relationship. In the new school internet environment, there's a 3-way relationship. The person who consumes the content is not the person who pays, and it's not the person who produces. The producer of the content goes and finds a sponsor, like Association Analytics. Hey, we have a captive audience, and if you want to sponsor our content, we'll promote you at the beginning of our content. The sponsor wants to get in front of those consumers. The consumers want the content, and they're willing to sit through a 2 or 3 minute commercial from that sponsor to get access to that content. And you, the organization, you want both. You want the revenue from the sponsor. You also need the eyeballs from the consumer. And in exchange for your email address and the data that you watched this and enjoyed this, and then later you went on to do these other things, I'll give you access to that. So I know Association TV has the option to sponsor stuff. You can put promotions in there. How do your customers handle this? Is everything behind a paywall for most of your customers? Do they leave most of exposed? Where do you see this?
We look at it, and your example is bang on, but we look at it from first of all, where is this association's biggest pain point? Is it recruitment? Is it retention? Or is it revenue? Right. So if it's heavily in one of those areas, it might influence just how you structure that. But what the internet has done is it has trained us that it is free first, 30-day free trial, this free, this free. There is a likelihood I will buy if I care, but there is free first. If you put me in front of your LMS and I have to go through the e-commerce to see if that course is, which is maybe 2 hours, is worth my time, I may just bow out because I don't have enough information. But if you give me that 30-second or 1-minute video that gives me a synopsis of what I will learn if I take that 2-hour course, you're going to increase the likelihood of me pushing through that gate and logging in as a member and going through e-commerce or whatever, or subscription, or maybe it's free because of sponsorship. And you can mix and match that so that you've got that model. So we call it, we have some different names for it: webinar all year long, conference all year long, but online learning all year long. Take that investment in long form content, make a 2 or 3 minute micro learning video, make a 30-second video, make a podcast version, gate the long form, go free with sponsorship on the short form, and use social to pull people in. And guess what you've done? You've monetized twice: sponsorship on one, pay-per-view or member only on the other. And you've created a sales funnel that pulls people interested in this topic all the way through with 1 to 2 clicks to get at that real deep content. And for some people, you know what? The 2-minute version is all they need. And guess what we start to learn through association analytics is we start to learn that there's a certain hunger for microlearning. And it'll help us with our proportioning of content, because a lot of us are trying to educate people at work. And during COVID, it was pretty easy because we're all at home. But when we go back to work, I may not have an hour. I may not have, even 30 minutes, but I can always squeeze in 5 minutes or 3 minutes.
Love it. Great thoughts there. So I think you mentioned another opportunity is the millennials coming through in the workforce now and getting leadership positions and realizing they need to be a member of the association. How do you think you're going to best engage them? By offering a once-a-year conference that they should come to? Or do you think you should go to them in the way that they're most comfortable engaging? Digital format, quick, small, bite-sized chunks, collecting the data and leading them through a pathway to engage them deeper. Which one do you think is going to be more successful engaging younger millennials? The jump in and scare me and tell me I have to come to your conference? Or just sneak your way right in with micro learning and snippets of content in places I'm used to?
Yeah, and with 3 things: mobile, mobile, and mobile. Right? They're going to engage on their phone. They may park you for later for some full-length content, but they're going to engage digitally, and video and audio is their medium of preference, and short, very short. They scan, they snack before they eat, and so let them snack on that micro learning and even your micro marketing, and pull them in with a funnel that's easy. So with 1 click, I left LinkedIn or Facebook, and I'm on your website on that video or on that podcast or on that article. With 1 click, I'm in your LMS taking that course. You take the friction out the way Amazon did, take the friction out the way Netflix did, and watch engagement grow.
I'll be honest, I'm a snacker, not an eater. The reason I don't write a lot of white papers is because I don't read a lot of white papers. The reason we make a lot of video content is because I watch a lot of video content. But secretly, the reason we do all that as well is for the data. I want to know who attended, how long you watched. If I publish a white paper, I don't know if you read the whole thing or if you stopped past the title page. I know that 30 people have made it all the way to the end of this. Thank you so much for your participation. That data is valuable for me, right? The same thing with the digital ecosystem. This is how people that are potential members want to participate, and the data is the reward for giving them access to the content they're looking for.
Agreed. Well, thank you everybody for taking time today. We know we've gone over. We hope it was of value. And again, if you're interested in the slides, let us know. We'll make sure you get access to that. And look at the format that we're going to send this to you, because it will help you think about how you could be repurposing in multimedia and across, and using social media more as a conversion tool, and using your website as a conversion tool for non-members to members, or from people who haven't yet gone into their LMS and should be, or into a virtual event or something special. And again, with tools like what Greg has, being able to measure and learn from that experience so that we can do it better the next time.
Dan, thanks so much for participating in this session with me. I thought this was great content. Rich here loved it as well. And I can't wait to be micro retargeted with snippets of content on Outpost later to pull me in and deeper engage me. I'm excited to see myself in nuggets of content down the road.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Greg. Appreciate it. Talk soon.
Bye, everyone.